Hey friends, it's PJ from the Prize Podcast. I had the distinct pleasure of going down to the Military Influencer Conference, lovingly known as MIC, in Atlanta just a couple weeks ago. For those of you who are unfamiliar with MIC, it's the largest single gathering of entrepreneurs, leaders, and creatives in the military space. There were some amazing speakers, we met some incredible people, and there was even a comedy night. Huge shout out to the MIC event staff for hooking us out with the media pass. This allowed us to set up our cameras so we could conduct some spot interviews to hear from some of the participants about what they thought the most important things to focus on when it came to transitioning out of the military. We heard some great things, and I just wanted to share them with you. Let's go ahead and dive in. If you had one piece of advice that you could give to a transitioning service member or their family getting out of the military, like what would that be?
I think, so I was in special operations, right? And the culture there is you don't ask, you don't be vulnerable.
That's right.
You suck it up, don't go see the doctors.
Yep.
So I think it implies not just special operations community, but all comers in the military is when you're transitioning is don't be afraid to be vulnerable. I know it's a hard thing to do coming out of a community that is about being macho, both females and males, right? But being able to say, hey, I think I have an issue, or I think I'm hurt, or I think I'm struggling, and it's okay to ask for help. In some ways, it's more courageous, right?
I totally agree, man.
And that's coming from someone who did not do it and had to deal with some of the repercussions of it. But yeah, so now through my learned experience, that's what I would teach these individuals coming out of service.
Hey, I appreciate that. And as when did you transition out?
That was 2010.
2010. Okay. What would you say like your biggest struggle was personally getting out?
So the day you leave the military, you lose a lot of things, right? You're severed from your team, your friends, your purpose, your mission, and you're all alone, right? So you were in the vacuum with the service members you deployed with, went to combat, and now I found myself one of the biggest public universities in the country, Ohio State.
I felt
so alone, right? No one knew my experience, no one knew who I was, and so that was the hardest thing for me. Is even though you're around thousands of people, you can feel completely isolated and completely alone because no one knows what you've done or seen or felt.
Yeah, interesting. And did you feel weird about sharing like your experience?
Yeah, because in the military, you talk a certain way.
Right.
Your coping mechanism is typically humor, usually dark humor, right?
Yeah.
So, in college, if I try to do that same kind of communication with an 18, 19, 20-year-old, they're going to look at you like, well, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
Well, that was my perception, at least, right? You always are your own worst enemy when you think of things. But
that's right. It's funny that you say that. Like me personally, my biggest struggle upon getting out was just learning how to talk to civilians.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't even realize in any way that was going to be an issue. Yeah. But to your point, it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, I'm kind of alone on this island. How do I make it work?
And I think, in the military, some of the crutch words you typically use are very different than the, ums or likes that you get in the civilian world. Typically, they're profanity laced, unfortunately. That's the truth. So you got to learn how to kind of speak again.
That's right. Yeah. Hey, I appreciate your time, Marshall.
Yeah.
It was really, really good talking to you.
Pleasure meeting you.
I appreciate your insight, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Marshall had a great share there, right? I mean, his big one here is don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Now, this is two sides to this piece, and I think this actually ties into the first one here that Sheena shared, is finding your community, because finding the right person to be vulnerable with can also be important. As I mentioned in the video, like my biggest struggle was just figuring out like how to talk to a civilian. And I think that this is one of those things that not a lot of people realize is going to be as much of a struggle as it is upon getting out. So finding your community and then being willing to share that side of yourself that maybe you don't feel comfortable sharing is really important. And I would also offer that when it comes to your relationships, when it comes to those that you love, don't always be so closed off to them either, because a lot of them want to understand you. And you taking the time to open up and be raw and share that with them helps them heal as a part of your process as well. Beautiful share. Thank you, Marshall. That was huge.